I'm sorry to break this to you, but you could own the world's finest grow light, enjoy the purest water source, and mix with the highest quality nutrients. But if there's no carbon dioxide in your indoor garden, then your plants won't grow. Period. Wah, wah, wah. That's because light, water, and nutrients form just part of the equation for botanical success. Carbon dioxide, or CO2, is the other crucial component, and plants absorb this invisible gas directly from the air. Now, bear with me for a second because this is important. Light is essentially an energy source, the big bang of photosynthesis in the form of photons, discrete packets of energy. Photons hit your plant's leaves, and this energy allows plants to grab a passing CO2 molecule from the air and combine it with some water sucked up from the roots. The result? Well, don't get too excited just yet. The CO2 and the H2O fuse together to form simple sugars called trioses. Ooh. The rudimentary triple carbon sugars are then combined inside the plant into carbohydrates. And in case you need me to tell you, carbohydrates are like a plant's very own battery cells insofar as they allow energy to be stored internally within the plant. And this is kind of important as it's the same energy which goes on to power nutrient uptake, growth, bloom, and all the good stuff. Wow. I mean, just wow. One more thing before we get to the nitty-gritty. You may have heard that CO2 levels in the atmosphere are rising, and sure, we're currently at 402 parts per million thanks to our penchant for burning fossil fuels, but while this is up a scary 44% from just 250 years ago when we were at just 280 ppms, CO2 levels used to be a lot higher. Some scientists claim that the last time we were around 402 ppms was 800,000 years ago. Some say no, it was 20 million years ago, long before humans ever existed. In either case, it's just a passing moment to a plant because when our leafy friends started first colonizing the land around 450 million years ago, CO2 levels were 17 times more concentrated than they are today, up as high as 7,000 ppms. Okay, so what's the point of this geological atmospheric history lesson, Everest? Well, plants have already evolved and adapted mechanisms to exploit high CO2 levels, much higher than 400 ppms. So, some indoor growers elevate CO2 levels in their indoor gardens in the hopes of sending their plants into Paleozoic overdrive. In fact, in optimal conditions, yields can be increased by 20 to get this 50% even more. Growers use CO2 cylinders or generators to infuse more CO2 into their indoor gardens, typically up to 1,200 or 1,600 ppms. That's 3 or 4 times the standard atmospheric levels of 402 ppms. Sure, you can go higher than this, but the law of diminishing returns really starts to kick in around 1,700 ppms. Cylinders of CO2 gas are expensive, hence most growers use a propane burner as propane is a good deal cheaper. Burning a gas, of course, introduces extra heat and humidity into your grow room, but bear in mind that generally speaking, plants typically thrive in a slightly warmer environment, say the low 80s Fahrenheit rather than mid to high 70s in elevated CO2 conditions. CO2 generators come in different sizes. For instance, the Aries series by Titan Controls has models that house between 2 and 10 burners. A 10-burner unit is good for gardens up to 1,600 square feet. Whichever burner you choose, it should come with a power supply, 4-ignition chain, hanging hooks, hose, regulator, and instructions. The chain and hanging hooks are important because you want your CO2 to be dispersed from up high, as pure CO2 is heavier than air. You'll also need a high-quality CO2 monitor and controller. This sniffs the air, works out the CO2 concentration, and adjusts the supply of CO2 accordingly until it reaches your desired setting. Again, Titan Controls have got you covered here. With the Atlas series, such as this Atlas 2, it comes factory calibrated and preset to elevate CO2 levels up to 1,500 ppms, my recommended top level. You can also buy handheld CO2 sniffers such as this Atlas 5. It measures temperature and humidity too. It comes pre-calibrated and is very handy if you're expecting other people's gardens and you wish to look very official and important. Superb. Oh, quite nice, chap. CO2 supplementation is a lot easier in sealed grow rooms. You just dose during the day up until an hour before lights out and ventilate at night, or at least dump the CO2 at the beginning of the night cycle. This is important or your plants will turn yellow. Sorry about it, folks. Plants don't want CO2-rich air at night. Now, in a ventilated grow room, this gets a little bit trickier, and there's no point injecting extra CO2 only to vent it straight out. So growers tend to cut their ventilation for 15 minutes and dose CO2, and then ventilate again, on alternating cycles during the day cycle, thus giving their plants time to absorb the extra CO2. It's a lot easier if you're using air-cooled hoods on a separate ventilation system, as you can keep these going while your garden's ventilation system is switched off. Okay, this is just a 101, so I'll stop here. Let me know what I missed, and we'll cover that stuff in the 102. Now, one thing I would like to add is that CO2 enrichment turbocharges the garden and sometimes catches growers go nowhere. Once I've got my second room built, yes, it's coming, we can do some interesting comparative stuff, and I'll also go over some DIY CO2 generation methods using good old water, yeast, and sugar. Yeehaw! Thanks for watching. Remember, subscribing to my channel is free and it really helps with the motivation, so please just do it. Bye for now, amigos. This is Everest, exhaling some CO2 your way.